What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I have something a little different. I have a story time of how I dodged a scammer. So I was dating a guy, we're gonna call him Joe, and when I met him, oh, by the way, I apologize for my voice. I've been sick for the last few days. My daughter's been sick was sick last week. Of course, gave it to me. So I'm a little hoarse now, so bear with me. So when I met Joe, I remember that one of the things that I liked about him was that when we first met, he's very direct, and so the first day we met, within the first 5 seconds, he's like, "You are so beautiful," and I was like, "Oh, thank you very much." I was just very surprised because we had just met, and the first day we met, he was like, "Well, I'm your boyfriend. That's just the way it is." So I like the fact that he was so direct. And he was from Morocco. He did live in Canada, and the first few, I want to say within the first 2 dates, pretty right away, I knew that he had been married. He was divorced, and I knew he had been married before, whatever. When I asked him why he was divorced, or what happened, when he was telling me the story, he told me that the girl that he had married was a smoker, and he doesn't like that. He was a very fit guy. He would go to the gym, very health conscious, I would say, and didn't like the fact that she smoked. And he said, "If you stop smoking, I will marry you," because she wanted to get married. So she stopped smoking. So they got married. But then she didn't stop smoking. She started smoking again, and so they got divorced. And I remember him hearing my story, telling me that story, and thinking that's the oddest thing I've ever heard. She clearly, tricked you. And he's like, no, she didn't trick me. And he was so adamant that no, she didn't trick me. I'm like, no, she did. No, that's what happened. No, she totally did. And I remember hearing the story, and that part of the story is actually very important to the whole overall story. And I do remember hearing that, thinking it was very odd, but I just kind of let it go. And that's kind of a sign that when something happens, when there is something that is not right, you really need to listen to your gut, because your gut will tell you the right thing to do. Because in my gut, I was like, this is just there's something not right here. Now, Joe and I actually broke up a few times and got back together. So the first time, that we broke up, he liked to do the same thing over and over again, and we would always sit in his car in a parking lot. And that was it. We would just sit there in the parking lot, and usually in the same parking lot. Then there was a different parking lot, so then it was the same 1 or 2 parking lots. I was bored. I'm a girl who always something going. So the first time we broke up, A, I was bored. B, my ex-boyfriend was trying to get back together, or trying to get me to go back with him. And that was it. So I broke up with him thinking I was going to be with my ex-boyfriend. We will call him Dan. So the first time I broke up with Joe, I actually had him come over to my house, and I broke up with him pretty right away. He thought it was funny, I guess, afterwards. He dated another girl pretty right away after that. And I thought I was going to be with Dan. Now, Dan actually was going back and forth between me and this another girl who was totally crazy. Crazy girl. And when I found out he was back with her, I got mad and went back to Joe. And I remember the first time we broke up and I said I wanted to get back together, we met in a parking lot. Shocker. It was always a parking lot. And I remember I had like tried to convince him for like a half hour or something like that, that this is what I wanted and that I wanted to get back together, and I didn't really mean it. This was all the issues that we should work on. And I was halfway through. It was probably an hour conversation and overall, and halfway through I was like, well, I can't even get out. Now I don't even want to do this, but I can't get out. I don't know what you want me to say. We were just like going in circles and he wasn't really like listening. And it was just very frustrating talking to him. We were like going around in circles and I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore, but now I've spent a half hour convincing you this is what I want. I can't get out. Like, I'm already committed to it. I'm already in. You can't get out now. Then broke up another time. And I went back to Dan. And I'm trying to remember what happened, sorry. And I went back to Dan. Dan actually ended up cheating on me. And when we started actually dating that time, he said the one thing he didn't want was for me to go back to Joe. He said, no matter what happens, don't do that. And so Dan actually brought a girl home. So he was living with his parents. I would go and stay there sometimes as well, so his parents knew me at that point. And he brought a girl home when I was there. He put her in the basement, and then at one point I saw them downstairs and he'd kissed her, and I saw him kiss her. And originally when that happened, I was just like, I'm done, I'm out. And then I was so angry. I was like, letting him off the hook is just not, it's just too easy. It's just too easy. I can't let him off the hook like that. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, he should be taught a lesson. And I knew the biggest way to hurt him was to go back to Joe. And so I went back to Dan and I pretended like everything was fine and that I was over it for a little while. And then I contacted Joe. We met. Again, a long conversation had happened to get back with Joe. And so there was about a week period where I was messaging both of them because I wanted to play it right and I wanted it to be in the right moment. Probably not something I would recommend. Don't do that. Someone cheating you, just leave them and just let it go. But I was very young, and you know, young people, you do stupid things. You want revenge, and I wanted revenge. I wanted to hurt him. So I remember telling him that I was back with Joe and being very mean to Dan, which he deserved it, to hurt him. And I know that I did hurt him, and I was very happy with that moment. And so I went back to Joe. And for a little while, I think I was happy with him. So again, he was from Morocco, and I did know that about when we first met, a little while after, he had told me that he was going to Morocco for a month to see his parents, see his family, because he hadn't seen his family in many years. And so he wanted to go visit them. I was like, okay, great, good for you. I didn't really think about it. When we really got back together and we were really serious, he asked me to go with him. And when he asked me to go with him, I was like, I can't do that. What are you talking about? I can't leave for a month. And like where I don't even know how that would work. So at the time I was a store manager or retail store manager, and he was going in like September, October. And going away for a month right before Christmas in retail is just not going to happen. I knew that. I knew that that was not going to happen. There was no way I could take a month off and come back to my job. And he said, well, then you'll live with me. And so we came up with a plan that I would go to Morocco with him, and I would move in with him after we got back, and then kind of figure it out from there. He said that he had a lot of room for my stuff. I knew I was going to have to put some of it in storage or whatever, or get rid of some of it. So we started to make a plan, and I even bought a plane ticket. So he had already bought a plane ticket when we were not seeing each other. He had a plane ticket, so I couldn't get on the same flight, so I went on a very similar flight. And I actually had a plane ticket to go to Morocco with him. After I had a plane ticket, shortly after that, he had mentioned that he wanted to bring his brother, one of his brothers, over to Canada. So he had two brothers that I knew of in Morocco, and he wanted to bring one of them over to Canada. And he was trying to figure out a way to do that. And one of the things he had done was he had talked to a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, who had said that he could find a woman who would marry his brother to bring him to Canada, but it would cost him a lot of money, like $20,000 or something like that, to do all of that. And I said, oh, that's a lot of money. Like, I don't know, like, you should really think about that. Do you have that much money? Like, that's a lot of money. And then I guess when we were not together, he had a friend who knew a woman who needed some money, who had agreed that she would do this for him for a fee. And he had told me the story, and I was like, that's crazy. Like, that's crazy. I thought it was just a crazy story, and I just kind of said, I wish that I could help. Like, is there something I can do? And I said it very casually, just trying to be nice, trying to be a nice girlfriend. Is there anything I can do? I'm sorry, like, this really sucks. And through our conversation, he had somehow gotten me to agree to marry his brother to bring him to Canada. So the plan was that because I was already going to Morocco, I would marry his brother when I was there, and then when we got home, we would then apply for a visa to bring his brother over under me, because I'm a Canadian citizen, he's my husband, and that when his brother got here, that we would live together, his brother in one room, me and Joe in the other room, and I wouldn't pay rent. It was part of the deal, and that he would buy me a car. I would have to get my license. At the time, I did not have my license, and that he would buy me a car as part of this deal. For me, yes, I was like, obviously compensation was a part of it, but for me, like, I really was like trying to do something nice for my boyfriend and trying to make him happy. And I remember going home that day after that conversation thinking, I'm not really sure how this happened. How did I agree to this? Is this even a good idea? What are you doing? Like, I remember thinking all of those things in my head going home, because I wasn't even sure even at the time how I had somehow agreed to myself to do this, because it wasn't something that is generally like me, and it's not something that I would generally advise for other people to do. Now, Joe had told me, don't tell anyone, because they're not going to understand, and they'll talk you out of it. And that was my first red flag of like, what do you mean not telling anyone? But if we're not doing anything wrong, what do you mean don't tell anybody? Like, people will find out. I'm married, I come back married, like, people will find out. Like, what are you talking about? And I did not listen. I told my one friend that this was his plan and that this is what I agreed to. And that friend, the reason I talked to her about it is because she had, I think, a cousin or like a family friend who had gotten married to somebody outside the country. Genuinely, like she went to another country, met somebody, they had met genuinely, they had gotten married, come over, they had had a kid, but he left her. But because she was a Canadian citizen and he wasn't, and she brought him over, she had to pay for him, I think for X amount of years, for like 7 years or something, I want to say, but she had to pay him a lot of money because she had to support him, even though they weren't together anymore. And so I told my one friend that because I knew she would help me to understand the potential consequences of what I was going to do and if this was even a good idea or not. If I could, like, if this was a good idea at all. And Joe had told me that, you know, he knew like what to do to set things up so that when they looked at things like messages and stuff, they could show that we really did know each other. Me and his brother really did know each other beforehand. And I thought that was a little strange, and that was my second red flag. Like, what do you mean? You know how to do this? Who knows how to do this? Like, people don't just know how to do this to scam the government. That just doesn't happen. So like, how do you know to do this? I thought that was really odd. But because I was young and stupid, I trusted him. And I'm a girl that if I'm in a relationship, I'm all in, fully in, committed all the way. And I put my whole heart into it. And I trust people probably too easily in a relationship. And so I just trusted him because to me that's what you do. And then there was one that I was really unsure of my decision. You know, red flags were starting to pop up. But I was like, you already have a ticket. Like, you already have a ticket. You're already committed. You told people that you're leaving. Like, there isn't a way out. Like, you can't get out now. You're already in. Like, you're already fully in. You just gotta go with it. And I told myself it was gonna work out. And then there was a night that I met up in a parking lot. Always in a parking lot. It was always a parking lot, which I never understood. We were always sitting in a parking lot, talking and about nothing. And I was really unsure of my decision. And then he had said, "No, I know how to do this. You know, I know I've done this before." You know, what do you mean you've done this before? I don't even know what that means. Like, what are you talking about? And then he said, "Well, you know that I was married before." And I went, "Yeah. So? What does that have to do with anything? What are you talking about?" And then he told me that he had come to Canada on a 2-week visa, tourist visa, to see the country. He met a girl while he was here and convinced her to marry him to bring him to Canada. So he went back to Morocco. She went with him. They got married. She brought him over to Canada. He became a Canadian citizen. He then divorced her and left her pretty shortly after. And when he said it to me, he said the story, I was like, "That's not the story you told me before. Like, that's not the story you told me." And he tried to convince me that I was wrong. He said, "No, you're wrong. This is what happened." And so because they had known each other for a very short time, they found somebody to like make up messages, emails that were fabricated to prove to the government that they knew each other for a lot longer. And so he had already done this, tricked the government into believing a relationship had happened for much longer. And so he knew what to do, and he knew how to do this, and he knew where to go and to who to talk to. And when he told me that, it was like a light bulb went on my head, that I knew that this was the plan, to find a girl, to bring his brother to Canada. And he decided that I was the girl. And maybe it was because of the, breaking up and getting back together, that he wasn't really happy. Or I don't know. He just decided that I was the girl to do this with. And I remember that day, and he knew something was wrong, and he kept asking me what's wrong, and I didn't want to say it out loud, because I was like, I don't even know what you want me to do. Like, I don't even know what you want me to do with this information. Now you're trying to tell me that I'm wrong, but I know that I'm not wrong. I know you told me another story. I know it for sure. I told other people that story because I thought the story about his first marriage was so preposterous. And I told other people that story. So I wasn't the only one who knew. So I was like, I know that I'm not wrong. I know that I am not crazy, and you're trying to convince me that I am, and that this is totally normal and totally okay. And this is totally not normal and not okay. But I bought a ticket. I had told people I was leaving. I was already so in. And I was like, I don't even know how to get out now. Like, you clearly tricked me. I knew in that moment that he had tricked me, and that he had scammed me to get me to marry his brother to bring him to Canada. And maybe he really did mean that all the promises that he had said he really did mean them, and that they were really going to happen. And maybe they were, but maybe they weren't. And I had no way of knowing anymore, and I knew that I couldn't trust him. And the moment you can't trust anybody is the moment a relationship will not work, and I knew that. And I remember he dropped me off at a mall on the way home, and I couldn't stop crying. Like, I could not stop crying, because I felt like I was drowning, and I was so far in, and there was no getting out. And Dan had actually called me that night. He had been calling me, trying to apologize, trying to get back together. I very rarely answered, but he called that day when I was in that mall, and I couldn't stop crying, and I had to go into a corner and I collapse on the floor crying, because I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to get out. And I was like, you put so much into this. Now what the hell do I do? And he convinced me to come to his house. And I did not go through with it. Originally I talked to Joe for a week or two. He was supposed to come up. My family goes away every year to a cottage, and he was supposed to come up for a few days, and I was committed to doing that, and I had tried to tell myself to just go through with it and to just do it. But I knew I couldn't trust this person, and I was like, how am I going to go to the other side of the world, not knowing the language, not knowing anything, and go through with this plan that will get me in so much trouble with somebody I cannot trust, who will not protect me. And so instead of the weekend that I'm supposed to go away with my family, I just didn't answer him. And I didn't answer him for like a week. He sent me a few messages. I just didn't respond. It was a week or two later. I did send a message, a very long message. He did not answer me. I didn't really expect him to answer me. Explaining why I stopped answering him. Do I think that it mattered to him? No, I don't, actually. So Joe's actually Muslim. He was a very religious guy. He would, pray 7 times a day. He did the whole shebang, everything that you could do. Muslim, he did it. And he was very devoted to his faith. And at the time, I thought that was very admirable. And I love that fact because I'd never met anybody who was that committed to their faith as he was. But there were times and moments that he would say things that made me feel like he didn't really care, and maybe he was incapable of that feeling. Obviously, he was not a virgin. We were intimate. And for example, there was one time that he said to me that he prays for forgiveness for what we do. He didn't know he's like, I don't know what you do, but I have forgiveness. I'm looking like that makes 0 sense. To me, that makes 0 sense. If you think it's wrong, it's still going to be wrong. Just because you ask for forgiveness, it's still wrong. Just don't do it. And he would have a plan of I want to have a house before I have children. I don't know what you're going to do. What does that mean? He would say things he didn't really care. But they were always small, and he would always brush it aside and just continue being he was very sweet, and there were times that he was very sweet and very nice, and then he would just make a little comment I'm like, what does that mean? What the heck is wrong with you? So do I think that he really cared? No, I don't. I think that he saw me as his potential to bring his brother over. Maybe they were going to do everything they said, maybe not. But I knew that I wasn't going to be able to take that risk. I did take the hit for the plane ticket because I had already bought it. I couldn't get a refund because I was stupid and didn't get insurance. Didn't think I needed it. I was crazy. You buy a plane ticket, get insurance, you can get a refund. Just saying. I didn't go. I thought I would never hear from him again. I did. That wasn't the end of the story. That was the end of my part of our story, me and Joe. I did hear his name again later, but that will be a part 2. And really the moral of the story for me is that you really should listen to your gut, trust yourself, because unfortunately people lie. It sucks, but people lie, and you have to trust yourself because only you can depend on yourself first before anything else. So I hope this was entertaining in some way. Again, definitely like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more, and definitely like the video if you would like a part 2, because I do. Joe does come back in my life in some way later on, much later, when I had completely forgotten about it and I never thought I would hear from him again. So definitely like this video and you will get a part 2 to my crazy story, and part 2 is definitely crazier than the first. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a lovely and fantastic day.